Screenshot.
Yeah, boy.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. Today we have a video on an interesting topic. I will be going over all the questions asked to the Outward developers after the Definitive Edition announcement. They had a chat session in Discord in December 2021 where they sat for a bit and answered the questions people had about the update. Some of these questions and answers may not be new topics for you, but some might be news you haven't heard yet, and I'm excited to share it with you. So without further chit chat, let's get into it. Is Definitive Edition a 2022 thing, or more likely later? Definitive Edition will definitely release in 2022. This is pretty great news as the Outward community is super excited for changes to the game and ready to get into some brand new content. There has been very little doubt about this statement from what I can tell, so it is probably safe to assume this won't change. Definitive Edition will release in 2022. Can you tell us if our current saves will be compatible with Definitive Edition? Save files won't be compatible, in part because of the stash change. Sorry guys, but you won't be able to use your older characters for the brand new content. I believe this was the same with the previous two DLCs, and it is to be expected, since the point of this update is to give you another reason to go back through Outward and play the game again with more stuff. The stash changes are a pretty big deal here as well, and probably even worth making more characters for. The player house chests will now be connected, meaning you won't leave stuff in one town and never see it again. Very excited for that change. Will Dev Diary come out when you have a release date or earlier? The Dev Diary will be released next year and will contain more info than what I disclosed today. The Dev Diary sounds like it will come out with the announcement or trailer for Definitive Edition. This will give us a much closer look at the upcoming changes and when we might actually expect it to release. This sounds like it will be a full release with pretty good marketing. They've kept a lot of the new content a secret and hopefully are actually trying to advertise this well to get more people interested. Will Definitive Edition reach 60 FPS on consoles? Yes. This is pretty great since consoles have lagged behind PC for Outward quite a bit in the last few years. From glitches to graphics, it was very difficult to play on Xbox or PlayStation. Not to mention people were losing NPCs, making content unplayable and causing massive amounts of the player base to move away from Outward. Obviously, since the Definitive Edition will only release on new-gen consoles, this isn't too crazy of a request, but those of us who want the game to succeed are pretty happy about it. Rather than ask for a release date, will it coincide with Elden Ring's release? Indeed, Elden Ring is a rather direct competitor we wouldn't dare to confront head-on. Marketing, release date, and such were difficult. Elden Ring is currently out, and the RPG world of gamers is pretty pumped about it. So pumped, in fact, that any game releasing within even the next month will have a hard time gaining any attention. The Outward developers are well aware of this and plan on avoiding any overlap with the game entirely. Being a much smaller company, it would be impossible for them to release the game now and draw in a large crowd. I don't think we will be seeing the update for at least 2 or 3 months after Elden Ring's release. This is a smart move by 9 Dots, and I am hoping it lets them do some better advertising to make Outward the hit it was 2 years ago. What sort of price will the game be if you don't own all the DLCs? I can't talk about price points yet. So a lot of people have been wondering about this one. Some people own one of the DLCs and not the other, while others don't have either of the DLCs. Definitive Edition is supposed to be free to those of us who own both DLCs, but what about everybody else? The price is currently unknown since none of the full details about this update have been released. I imagine it will be a bundle type deal. The new update sort of requires the 2 DLCs, meaning it will probably be sold with 3 different packages. Soraborians in Definitive Edition, 3 Brothers in Definitive Edition, and finally, all 3 in 1. This will allow everyone to buy the update regardless of which DLC they do or do not have. Another thing they could do is make the price a flat amount for everyone, regardless of what you have missing. I doubt this will be the case since people will not buy it if the price is unreasonable, and they would have to mark the price too low for the total content of all DLCs. As of now, we do not have any info on pricing, so if you are unsure about whether or not to buy a DLC, go ahead and wait until we get an announcement. Then maybe you will be able to tell if it's better to wait or just get the add-ons right now. So the new content will be present on the current maps? That is correct. This is interesting. Previously, any large change or addition to Outward came in the form of new maps and areas for the players to explore. This will not be a thing with Definitive Edition. I am pretty surprised by this because it means some sort of significant change to the current maps. Maybe we're getting small objects or buildings in each area that would only cover mostly vacant land. Or maybe we're just getting more enemies. I think this would be the perfect time for them to introduce passive animals such as birds and maybe a form of cattle. It might also be nice to see some adventurers traveling the roads in each area. New content could mean anything, and this has the community stumped at the moment. However, it does mean that something will change on the current maps, so you better go check out these areas one last time. They may never be the same again. Are tweaks and balances to skills being added in the Definitive Edition? Some of them, yeah. I don't think there's any area of balance that we didn't touch on, at least in some places. The game is about to change, ladies and gentlemen. With any RPG, you have abilities that are slightly superior or slightly worse than other abilities. Outward is no different. Currently, it is possible to become completely immune to your enemy's attacks, stack up on lightning resistance, and fight the Lightmender. Simply wear Jade Acolyte armor and the Jade Lich is a piece of cake. This may be changing soon. No specific details were given, but touching at least everything sounds like skills, items, and even buffs will be tweaked at least a little bit. From what I have heard, it sounds like Outward will be getting a little bit harder. I imagine a few things in the game will be changed to benefit the character, but how often do game creators need to balance a game because it's too difficult? I personally feel like Outward is difficult enough already. Most new or even average players still die often from seemingly anything. If you are fully prepared for every fight, then yeah, maybe Outward is a little easy for you. I don't know what will happen with Definitive Edition. Some of your least favorite enemies could get even harder, or maybe some of your favorite skills could get a bit weaker. We unfortunately just don't know yet. I sure am curious to find out though. Will you change music? Music is untouched. Outward has some amazing music that can make you feel like you're conquering the world one minute and on the run the next. Almost all of the tracks are really fun to listen to, and it is nice to see that they will be staying in the game without any change. One thing that is sad about this is that the abrupt stops in music may still stay in the game. Occasionally, there are times when you get into a creepy cave that has dripping water and eerie sounds of noises coming from everywhere. Then, without any warning, it will all cut off and become sort of bland. It can be very irritating to be jamming to some adventure music to have it immediately turned off and force you to walk around in silence. Hopefully, we may see some changes in how the music alternates to maybe fix that, but so far it doesn't sound like it will be a priority. In response to UI feedback on enemy weaknesses, are we talking different colored damage numbers here or splash effects when they're strong enough to not be hurt? The life bar will flash with appropriate effects to convey resistance or weakness. The ability to attack an enemy with something they are resistant to makes Outward much easier on the player. Understanding what an enemy is immune to is also important, since trying to burn a metallic enemy won't get you very far. Apparently, we are getting an effect on the life bar of enemies to let us know how to combat them. Currently, you have to figure this out by trial and error, and sometimes that might get you killed. It will be nice being able to understand more about our enemies while fighting them, and get some extra feedback during combat scenarios. This sounds like a fantastic change, and I am excited to see what becomes of it. In response to enemy balancing, did you adjust their poise stability? I felt like those values were very defining for the difficulty of certain mobs. Yes, that's part of what we changed. What makes certain mobs difficult in Outward is that no matter what you throw at them, they will not be knocked back. For most enemies, however, this is not the case. Even large boss enemies can be knocked over quickly by hitting them with more impacting weapons. Items like the Star Child Claymore or Sar Fists can make harder enemies unable to fight you at all. Now, it seems like enemies who suffer from this will be getting a bit of a buff to make them more worthy of their actual difficulty. Bosses shouldn't be very easy to knock down, while common enemies like humans and hyenas should fall over quite easily. This seems like a reasonable fix that will only improve the game's mechanics rather than simply making it more difficult. Will DLC enemies also be in vanilla zones, like Arcane Elementals? Specifically for Arcane Elementals, yes, to make enchanting less bottlenecked within a single region. Enchanting sucks pretty bad at the current moment, because it means grinding for materials in the Antique Plateau. You can't get any of the particles needed in any other area, because the elementals only spawn there. This will soon be changing. Elementals will spawn in locations in each area, so that we can play the entire game while looking for particles, and maybe even those enchanting scrolls. This should make the transition between DLC areas a bit smoother, and make everything seem more like one game. It will also add more elementals, making it much easier to craft incense for enchanting much sooner in the game. Has Co-op been improved besides the stash? That's pretty much it for Co-op. Don't expect a new mode in which there are shared rewards for quest stuff, for instance. This will stay as it is for multiple design reasons. I have seen a few people complain about the fact that one player receives all the rewards for completing a single faction quest. This can be frustrating since you both have to then complete it again on another person's character. One person will always be stronger or weaker until you both complete the faction quests, and this often leaves one person to not have all his or her rewards. I do understand how annoying this is. However, it kind of can't be changed. The system is set up like this, so both characters could choose a different faction quest, making it easier to create co-op builds and go for traits that will help you rather than just benefit your buddy. Changing this would allow for people to cheat and gain access to multiple passive skills that they are not meant to have together. It can be irritating to do more than one faction quest, but it is also how the game is designed, and it gives you more opportunities to check out the full content in Outward. Will the whole game be voiced? Voiceover will not be changed. That would be too expensive and also very complex to do. Having to track down and rehire every actor to redo their role while they might not be available is just too much. Personally, I don't even like fully voiced games. I just skip through as soon as I read the line. The first time I played Outward, I was really bothered by the fact that the NPCs would read parts of their dialogue but never finish any of it. I would then have to finish reading it myself and not get the same feeling from the experience. However, I promise you would not want this game fully voiced. There's so much dialogue, and sometimes NPCs can talk to you for 10 minutes if you really want them to. That would be too much voice acting to do at this point in the game's development, and let's be honest, most of us read through it anyway because those people talk way too slow. It would be cool if everything was voiced by all the NPCs, but we don't really need it, and that's a lot of work for people to just be skipping it. Will there be modding support for Definitive Edition? Yes, we plan to have a mono branch for modding the Definitive Edition. Outward has a pretty decent amount of mods, and some of them are really cool. More people in co-op, new skill trees, or even a mod that gives you the number of your health, stamina, and mana. Many cool mods that can easily be loaded into Outward only to better your experience. Nice to see that this will be available for Definitive Edition, so everyone can continue to enjoy the game in any way that they want to. Is this the end of Outward? After Definitive Edition is released, we will move on to new projects, confident that Definitive Edition will be worthy of the name. So yeah, this is it for Outward, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's plenty to do in this game, and from the way the devs are talking, there will be plenty to do when the new content gets here. I really think too much in one game is never good, and Outward is at a point where it's a pretty nice time to stop. I'm sad to see we aren't getting other towns like Haboob or even the Kazite Pirate Town. There really is a lot that could be done with Outward, but it's pretty understandable for the company to be moving on. Hopefully, we can get another game from them that works in a similar way to Outward. Maybe a new story and a new world? Outward 2, anyone? A man can only dream. Can you talk about aesthetic design, graphics, sounds, etc.? You will hear it when it rains. A pretty vague statement that means there could be a lot more coming with this. However, hearing rainfall is one of the most aesthetically pleasing feelings in a game. An environment like Outward is begging for this to be implemented, and from now on, I hope it only rains in my games. Can you travel to Antique Plateau on foot? No, the way to travel to the Antique Plateau is unchanged. Those pesky Soroborians want all of your silver. Harmadden is actually much further from any of the other towns, and this is why we have to pay to travel there. It is much too far to walk, and the Soroborians travel to and from so often that it would be stupid for them to not charge a travel service. Will we get to filter the stash? Good one, and I'm not actually sure of the answer. The stash chests basically hold anything you can think to throw in them. Especially with them now being connected through your houses, you can see why we might want a way to sort through this. Hopefully, we can see some sort of feature that lets us find our items in chests, because I, for one, will be packing that thing very, very full. Any changes to the skill tab? Sorting favorites? I don't know if the skill tab was changed. I don't think so. The skills tab in Outward currently has little to no system by which it organizes your skills. It seems to be an order by which you learn, and most of the time this becomes very chaotic. I want all of my boons in one place, so I never forget to activate one. I also would like all my attack skills in one place. This will make switching up skills before a fight much easier, and it would make for a smoother gaming experience. If we don't see this in Definitive Edition, it won't be the worst thing in the world, but it sure would be nice. The Definitive Edition is some pretty exciting news for Outward. It is not a patch, but rather a new product. Players who own the full game's content get it for free, which is pretty nice of the company. I love this game very much, and it has so much potential. Hopefully, this update gives Outward the polishing touch it needs and makes the game even better than it already is. A lot of bugs, glitches, and weird graphics will be changed with this new content, so we may be looking at a completely new experience. It is also the last thing the company is doing with the game, and is supposed to give us plenty to do. I, for one, am excited about this new chapter in Outward, and hope that you guys are too. If you have any questions about Definitive Edition, go ahead and leave them down in the comments section below. I will try to answer as many as I can, but there isn't a ton that we know at this point, so be aware of that. Thanks for watching the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.